Disclaimer, if you are someone that is brand new to Magic the Gathering, do not buy this deck. If you are someone that has a ton of skills and knows how to play the game, buy this deck. It is incredibly fun. The thing is that this deck requires you to have a big brain, and a big brain with a large capacity and information and knowledge for the game of Magic the Gathering. Look at how old this character is right here. Her age represents the amount of skill that you need to play this game. She is an old lady. So if you identify as an old lady, think about buying this precon, because you have to have not only knowledge for what you're going to do when you play this deck, you need knowledge on what your opponents can potentially do when you play this deck. So you're not just playing your own deck, you're thinking about how your opponents are going to play so that you can counteract what they're going to potentially do, so that you can look at the cards in your hand and say, maybe 2 or 3 turns from now, I can play this card because I play this card right now, so we can combo with that card. And this amount of thinking requires an immense amount of information that will make you age like this lady over here. This lady is actually in her 20s, but she just looks old because of the amount of stress that she felt playing this commander deck. Now, the commander for this deck is Shiko and Narset Unified, which reads, Flying Vigilance. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, copy that spell if it targets a permanent or player, and you may choose from targets for the copy. If you don't copy a spell this way, draw a card. Now, this commander necessitates that we focus on the second spell we cast each turn, and specifically, the spell has to target a permanent or a player. So when we're looking at the cards inside of our hand, we're going to have 2 kinds of cards. We're going to have cards that we can cast that are generally low mana, like we see over here, 1 red to cast. This one costs 3 to cast, but then allows us to untap 3 lands, so you basically pay 0 mana to play this card. And you're going to notice a pattern in how low or how cheap these cards are to cast on this side, which, because these are cheap to cast, when we look at the other pile of cards that we have over here that more importantly say target, right? Because the second spell we cast each turn, if it targets a permanent or a player, so all of these target a permanent or a player, we're going to want to play these as our second spell during our turn. And it doesn't necessarily have to be only during our turn, it can be also during our opponent's turn as well. Chaining both of these cards together. This is instant speed, so I can play this whenever. Instant speed, so I can play this whenever. The reason being is that we can then copy these spells. So if I play this as my second spell, I destroy target creature twice, and then they create 2 3/3 green ape monkeys. Okay, so we also have target, right? Target, and what you're gonna notice is that this removes something from the board. This removes something from the board. This deals damage to something on the board. And most importantly, a lot of these cards are going to be destroying a lot of things. So it's important to make sure that we're removing things efficiently, because it's what's going to allow us to win the game. So when we're playing with these cards that target, specifically the ones that destroy our opponent's cards, we want to maximize and not just destroy things to destroy things, but destroy things like our opponent's commander, destroy things like a powerful artifact or enchantment, or if we know that our opponent has a combo piece that they can use to win the game, we wait for them to play that card so that we can remove it. We just don't want to destroy things to destroy things. We destroy things intelligently, like the wisdom that we see in this old lady's face right here. Now, how do we win playing this deck? We win playing this deck by the advantage that we gain by casting our instants and sorceries or non-creature spells. So, in other words, we play these types of cards first, and then we start talking about chaining the cards that we talked about previously during this video. So, cards that specifically say, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, whenever you cast your second spell, whenever you cast, I can keep repeating this over and over again. We want to make sure we have at least 2 to 3 copies of these cards that do something whenever we cast something, because generally speaking, we're creating tokens, we're creating treasures, we're dealing damage, we're drawing cards whenever we do the things that we talked about earlier whenever we target, which means that not only are we doing what our spells are allowing us to do as we cast them, but we're also gaining a ton of advantage as well from the other things that we have in play, which over the course of the game gives us so much advantage that it's difficult for our opponents to deal with our board state, because we have so many different things happening that it's difficult for them to target specifically what they want to target. I'm telling you, your brain needs to be this big in order for you to successfully pilot this deck and move through things efficiently. There is a lot going on, but at the same time, it is incredibly powerful. The amount of skill needed to play this deck directly correlates with the power level of this deck. Meaning the power level of this deck is directly correlated to your skill as a Magic the Gathering player. This deck has an infinite combo. Remember, this deck is for experienced players. I'm going to do my best to describe this as simple as possible. We have 2 cards over here called Adaptive Training Post and Expansion Explosion. We're really just looking at the card over here, the side of the card over here that says Expansion. Adaptive Training Post says whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell, this gets our charge counter. So if you're playing against this deck, know what this does. Because if this gets to 3 charge counters, that means that whenever we cast an instant or sorcery spell that's mana value 4 or less, or even our opponent casts one, we can cast Expansion in response, which then allows us to copy our own spell. But the thing is that in response to us casting Expansion, we can remove 3 charge counters from the training post to then copy our expansion trigger or expansion spell. We're going to use this card over here to represent our expansion spell, because then we can then use the copy of expansion to then copy our copy of expansion, which means that we can then create another copy of expansion to then copy our copy of expansion. And this can happen over and over again infinitely, which means that we can then have an infinite amount of something called a Magecraft trigger. Magecraft says whenever we cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, this one specifically allows us to draw a card. So with Archmage Emeritus in play, when we do this, we can draw into our entire commander deck if we wish, or we can create, more importantly, I like the most, we can create an infinite amount of treasure tokens with the copy of Stormkiln Artist. And with infinite amount of treasure tokens, we can use basically an infinite amount of mana to then place into Electro Dominance, which is then going to allow us to deal an infinite amount of damage to any target, or we can just basically just delete somebody from the game. Now, these payoffs are not necessarily super amazing, but as you upgrade this deck in the future, you're probably going to want to add more cards with Magecraft abilities and more ways to benefit off of this infinite combo over here, so you can just remove somebody from the game and win the game like that. Now, at the end of these videos, I always recommend that you play test your commander deck so that you get a feel for how this deck plays, which means you're going to draw 7 cards and you're going to pretend that you're playing against people so that you gain experience playing this deck. Now, this deck, more than any other pre-con, I recommend you have to playtest this deck, because it requires a lot of thought and a lot of thinking and a lot of precognition for potentially what your opponents can do so that you can experience the most amount of success. Now, if you want to play games against me live on Twitch, you can go ahead and let me know in the comment section below by challenging me to a game of 1v1 Commander, or you can head over to the Discord and then you can type under the challenge tab that you challenge me to a game of Commander, okay? Always remember, everybody, subscribe and like this video, eat healthy, okay? Work out every single day, and most important, you guys gotta remember to believe in yourself. Have fun playing this deck, guys. Peace out, people.